Welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Tuesday, July 12th, 2022, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you and good evening, my loves. You're joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens, you'll see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ+ experience. We bring the best of LGBTQ+ news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Dr. Tai Houser. Yes, it said Al Ferguson, but thank God he's not here tonight. Let's welcome anchor Sobourney Barnes. Sobourney is a South Florida native who has been an activist and leader in the LGBTQIA+ community for a decade. An original committee member of the Caribbean Pride Festival, Sobourney has been involved with various community partners such as Aqua Foundation and the Stonewall Museum and Archives. She's currently the Fed Club co-chair for Human Rights Campaign South Florida and the vendor coordinator of Pride Fete, a grassroots event for the queer Caribbean community. Welcome, Sobourney.
Thank you, Dr. Houser.
Hi, girl. Nice to see you.
Hey. Very surprised we don't have Al here tonight, but you know what? We get to misbehave because he's not here. So.
Right.
But folks, it is time to welcome H icon in our community who does not really need my welcome, but we're doing it anyways. Julian Cavazos. Julian is the founding executive director and CEO of Julian's Fountain of Youth, or JFOY, a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving the LGBTQ+ youth community locally. Located on the Drive in the heart of Wilton Manors, JFOY's work, programs, retreats, and youth activities are celebrating their 4th year anniversary this month. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you, Sobourney. Let's welcome anchor Christopher Barnhill. Christopher is a native of Washington, D.C., an HIV activist and community leader. If there's one thing you must know about him, Brandy Norwood is his queen.
Yes.
Welcome, Christopher.
All right, let's welcome Cindy Brown. She is an icon in the LGBTQ+ community. She was an early organizer of Miami AIDS Walk, the White Party for Care resource, and other major events. She has served as the executive director of Miami-Dade Gay and Lesbian Chamber Foundation and the LGBTQ Visitor Center. She is the founding executive director of Miami Beach Pride and currently serves as the program manager for Jewish Community Services LGBTQ Lambda Living Program for LGBTQ seniors. Good evening, Cindy.
Yeah.
What don't you
I'm
do,
tired.
girl?
Do you sleep?
I'm tired, girl.
Like, you need a nap, you need a massage, you do it all, honey.
Wow, I'm surprised you're here tonight.
Well, here I am, and we are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. And this evening, we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, July 12th.
We'll begin tonight by queering up education. Jacksonville School Board vote results on controversial new rules that harm LGBTQ+ students. On July 1st, the Parental Rights in Education law took effect. Many school boards are still fighting against some of the provisions and debating if they should be adopted. Yesterday, the Duval County School Board voted 7-0 to change their support services for students in compliance with the law. One specific provision of concern was if educators have to alert parents if a student requests a change to their support services. For example, a change to preferred name or pronoun. For many students who may not have a safe environment at home, this could mean being outed to potentially abusive parents. The school board also removed an anti-bullying video from the district's website that gave tips on how students could be allies to the LGBTQ+ students who were facing bullying.
Well,
Disgusting.
it
Very
just started the attack on our kids.
Right. I mean,
there.
the horrible thing, they took down a video to help kids not bully one another.
Right.
I mean, it's just really sad because, you know, we've been fighting and fighting and fighting, and we get these, you know, 2 steps forward, and now they want to push us back.
What gets me is that within the law itself, there is still that provision of if a young person even discloses their identity, it doesn't matter if, you know, they're transgender and they do wish to be called a specific name and pronoun. If they're gay, if they're lesbian, bisexual, whatever it is they identify, that's not straight, heterosexual, cisgender, whoever they tell, if they are a teacher, faculty member, administrator, they're supposed to inform their parents within a certain amount of time. So it's not just if the young person has or express that they want to change their gender marker, or more so their pronoun or their name in the schools. So that leads me to, how are these kids specifically gonna get that support? Because that's what we really need to be talking about. Where is that gonna happen? Because obviously it
They'll
can't
end
happen.
up dropping out of school and not getting an education because they're afraid. They're afraid to go to school. And they're afraid to go home, so they'll run away.
I remember back when I was coming up, like my guidance counselor literally was my best friend. I could tell her, I mean, I came out when I was in 9th grade. So I remember just going through that process and just telling her pretty much all the stuff that I was going through at home, stuff I couldn't tell my parents, stuff I really couldn't tell my friends, but I had her. And now to think that, you know, these young people won't have that resource in that school, it really makes me sad because, you know, school's supposed to be a safe space. If you're getting bullied for being gay at home, and now you're going confiding with a teacher or a resource, and then they come back to tell your parents, and then you go home and probably get, you know, the living crap beat out of you because of who you are. It's like, where are students supposed to go?
Exactly.
And teachers and counselors are terrified.
Yeah.
Yes, because even they are at some degree also being penalized by these rules. They're not allowed to, I believe it's a few actual counties that have said, oh, you can't even express this is your spouse. You can't have any photos up.
Oh my
So
gosh.
how is it that as an adult who's, hey, I'm not a kid, I'm living my life, I am just trying to show support. I just want to show that, hey, I'm married to this wonderful human being who loves me for who I am. Maybe I just want to have a photo up of my spouse like all of my other colleagues, my heterosexual colleagues are allowed to have. But then also to your point, these young people who they don't have support at school and then they don't have it at home, we have to also think of just in terms of how much time young people spend, 9 months out of the year, you're at school. And that is 8 hours of the day, just like adults are at work. And then when they're out, they're at home. And if you're also in that environment where you're not being supported, if all you have is no support in anything, then there will be a higher rate of suicidality within our LGBTQ plus youth community because of this law. Yet, it's okay. DeSantis does not care about that.
There's actually I'm sorry. Go ahead, Julian.
Well, and you know, we work with kids I work with kids every day, and you know, if there's one thing I can say about being, and you know this as well, Sobourney, living here in this city, in this area of South Florida, for a lot of our youth, it's fairly safe because we're in this bubble, but that's not the majority of the youth in Florida.
No, not at all.
Especially up north. But even the youth that I'm talking to and that I'm working with now, they're concerned. They're afraid. So this is massive. This is huge. And I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned for our youth.
So, and what's the question? Then my question is sort of what's the difference between like an experimental nickname and wanting to change? And I know that there's a difference, but how is a teacher supposed to know the difference between an experimental nickname? I went by Elmo when I was in kindergarten.
I went by so many different names when I was going.
And so how is my teacher supposed to know that I wasn't?
They can't.
I wasn't
They
trying
can't
to
possibly
switch.
know.
I was just because I liked Elmo.
You know, and there's actually a statistic that says it only takes one supportive adult in a young LGBT person's life. And like Christopher, that was your guidance counselor.
Yes, yes.
And, you know, how else are you going to find connections? Actually, at Jewish Community Services, we have youth programs where we would go out into the schools. Next school year,
You won't be able to do that.
yeah, and we have gotten calls from teachers who are like, what are we going to do? I can't invite you to come into the school, but it's the only lifeline
Mhm.
these kids had in a confidential setting.
What about all the gay, straight, and lesbian, like gay, straight alliances?
That's no
Even
no
though-
more.
That's gonna
That's
be-
done.
If I'm not mistaken,
can't have
in
it.
that law, the Gay Straight Alliance clubs are also being targeted themselves. And even though they say, you know, oh, it's only for what
Age appropriate.
age
or whatever.
appropriate.
But that could mean
specific law.
anything.
Exactly.
Exactly.
They
It could
left
be,
it that
I'm
vague.
17
Exactly,
years
that's
old, and
what I
that's not
said.
age
Right.
appropriate.
Right.
It's not age
exactly.
appropriate, or it's not appropriate because you're talking about sexual orientation, which leads to sexual activity. And in our school or in our community, that is not age appropriate. We don't talk about that. So we can't talk about LGBTQ issues.
So what about sexual health, though? Because that's also
You
going to be
can't
part
talk
of it.
about
Yeah.
that.
You can't talk
Boom.
about that because young people are having sex
Oh,
They
as
are
young as
having
13. So we
Yeah.
can't talk about sex.
You can't
In
talk about
schools?
sex
So
at
kids
all.
are not getting the appropriate education that they need to protect themselves from STDs and
Well,
HIV.
gay kids
Right.
are not.
Well,
Gay kids
gay
are not,
kids-
Right.
even the straight kids,
Exactly.
because all they're getting is that fear mongering of if you have sex,
Have
you'll
sex
get
and
pregnant.
die.
Yes, you
Mean
will get an
Girls.
STD. I
Right?
just watched Mean Girls yesterday. Thank you. But you're gonna get an STD and die if you have sex, or you'll get pregnant and die.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
it.
what I think is going to have to happen is around the country and around the state, more organizations like Julian's are going to have to step in
Yeah.
and find a way to reach these young people underground.
Yeah.
And make sure that they know in this underground LGBT youth arena how to find support. And I mean, I'm 60 years old. I don't even know how to begin with that. But I think
word
that,
of mouth
you know,
marketing.
it's got to happen. It's got to come from within. We're the only ones who have ever supported us.
And this is where we failed in our compulsory education system, right? It was
Right.
started as a way to help educate everyone equally. And what we've done, and I don't know if you've attended one of these school board meetings or not or whatever, I've attended many, and you'd be surprised that there's very little conversation that doesn't involve the lawyer explaining what you are and are not allowed to say. So we have taken the governing of education, we've given it up to the state because we want state funding. If we're going to have real education and the state really wants an educated populace, then the state needs to fund it and back the hell out.
Right,
Because that's the
exactly.
only way we're going to get a quality education for our local communities so that our school boards can start making those decisions that are right for the people of that community.
Yeah, part of the challenge is we're in a movement toward non-educators being elected to school boards.
Absolutely.
And you're not an educator, you know, parents and non-educators should have absolutely no say in the school curriculum.
Right.
That's what the PTA
how-
is for.
Exactly. Not, well, I mean,
Like no
you know,
offense
you
to them,
have
but
to have
No.
educators that are making the decision, who know what it's like to be in schools, who know how kids are, how kids behave. And you can't just pull a hood over your head and say, if we don't tell them about sex, they're not going to have it. Of course they're going to have it.
What
And
year is
now,
this?
and now there's no abortion option. So
you
well,
gotta bring
you
it up
know,
and we gonna keep
it's
going.
up to the-
I'm
But to be fair,
Right.
parents,
We're gonna talk
parents
about-
should have a voice in their students' education. What they should not do is have a voice in other students' education.
exactly.
Right.
So,
Right.
I think parents absolutely need to be involved,
They shouldn't develop
but
curriculum.
they're not the ones responsible for the curriculum. They can ask questions about it,
Right.
and they can decide if maybe a topic is something that they don't don't particularly support. I mean, there are religious reasons why you might want to avoid certain
Then go to
topics.
parochial school.
But
Go
but
to
that's
private
exactly
school,
the point.
homeschool your kid.
Your point then is not public education. Your point is to find where that is being taught.
So it's like opt-out options, maybe, like how for some like sexual health, parents have the ability to opt out if they want their kid to be a part of it. I know that's.
But you can't opt out of gay culture.
Right, but
because it's
Right.
there.
but to say that no one can learn it at all is just kind of like.
Well, they're going to learn it anyway. They're just not going to learn it factually.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's so strange, but sitting here and having this conversation in this moment, I had this, like, what year is this?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
What
1952.
just
That's what we just
happened
went to.
Right.
in the last 4 or 5 years? Do I even need to say
We
it?
backed into
We-
the
That,
50s.
what
we
the
know.
hell?
Exactly.
It's just,
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully we don't come to another civil war, but
I
we
wonder,
just got
But
to.
like, we on the
I
brink.
wonder, Sobourney, if there's something we can learn from Germany.
Yes. Let's see.
You say Germany, you know exactly what first came to mind. 'Cause I'm thinking of Alan, what he always says about, I'm not even going to bring it up. But what I would love to see is just a change in how it is that we are having these conversations, just like the conversation on, like you brought up earlier, having the conversation about not just sexual orientation, but also reproductive rights.
Absolutely.
Like, you don't have to take it away for everybody. If that's not for you, that's not for your family, that's fine. But we need to have this option. We need to be able to have this conversation safely. That's what it comes down to. If you're not able to have this conversation safely and in an environment where people can actually thrive, then what they're going to do is go out, get the information incorrectly from somebody else, and then
Exactly.
they are going to be the ones who are having a detriment to their health. And that is what
Yeah.
we are not trying to have happen to our youth,
Right.
especially not in Florida.
and didn't we
Heck,
hear
a lot
this
of
20 years ago, 30 years ago?
Yes.
This is just nuts.
We're fighting the same
We're
battle
fighting the
over and over.
same
No,
battles.
but
Why don't we
Time to
move on? Move on with.
'Cause we will stay
This
on
was
this
my
forever.
this was my attempt to set you
I
up.
saw
I
that.
know.
That was
You
good.
tried to
That
tee
was
it
good.
up, but I went somewhere.
You weren't ready.
You know, the youth are your
Girl,
babies.
They are. I will fight about my youth all day, every day. But
That's right.
moving forward, it is time for us to queer up gay culture. New data on surprising results of first 5 years after same-sex marriage approved in Germany. Germany was one of the last countries in Western Europe to allow same-sex marriage. Since 2001, couples could enter civil partnerships, but it wasn't until 2017 that marriage became legal. Last week, the German Statistics Office, the Status, not DeSantis, released information on same-sex marriages since that time. The data shows a rush of marriages in late 2017 and 2018, but the number of unions has decreased continually since then. Marriages between men has decreased the most, and marriages between women have become more common. In 2017, 45% of all same-sex marriages were between women. In 2021, that rose to 53%. And I'm just gonna say it's because we U-Haul.
U-Haul, that's right.
Like, if you don't have a U-Haul by the second date, it's a problem. If by the end of that week you aren't proposing, then just know that's why it's happening.
Well, you know,
I'm kidding.
the decrease in the number of marriages means absolutely nothing. Initially, people who had been together 40, 50, 60
Yeah.
years rushed to get married. And the decrease is just a representation of new people who are deciding to get married. And it certainly isn't surprising that
Not at all.
And that's
women
funny.
are getting
No.
married at a faster rate.
Us gay men can barely be together for 10 minutes before we find another one.
Well, there's
Right.
a lot
Oh,
of gay
that
men
was
that are.
That was you at Eagle the other night.
Oh, it actually was.
Okay, all right.
I was there. My
I
boots.
got that.
Okay.
Had his boots on. Hey.
But also, I didn't have this story in time to do additional research on it, but I wonder if the fact that there is not equal government support for same-sex versus heterosexual marriages. For instance, one of the reasons why same-sex marriage is important in the United States is because there's a great tax benefit to it.
Yeah, it is
Right.
a business.
Is that the same thing in the EU? Is that the same thing in Germany? I don't know the answer to that.
Either.
I'm asking it rhetorically. Maybe
Yeah.
someone out there knows and would like to comment.
Yeah.
Dropping.
I don't know, but I would suspect that the data for U.S. same-sex marriages isn't too
Right.
far
Far
off
off,
from Germany. I mean, it makes perfect sense
Yeah.
that those would be the trends.
Well, with more people opening up to polyamory, undefining their relationships, I do believe that. I mean, same-sex marriages will decrease because of that, because people can have multiple partners. I do believe that depending on which age demographic they are marrying, I think that definitely does matter. People who may be 35 and up may be more keen to marriage because, you know, of the ability to own property and have other benefits that are beneficial for those who, are of benefit. But people who are in their 20s are not thinking about marriage, probably.
Well, I think a lot of people in their 20s aren't thinking about marriage. But when you're not thinking about it and you meet the person, that's, you know, you might never think about it, and then all of a sudden,
Just meet that person and
it just happens. But
No, don't joke trying to sell me on that.
look, I'm 60. I'm hoping. I'm still hoping. You hear
Overly
that? You hear
romanticized
that?
Hallmark
Cindy
quality
is
thing.
free.
Bullshit.
An icon, boo.
She's an
No, I
icon.
mean-
You can find her at 954. No.
I was gonna say, you can find her on her.
786.
But isn't every lesbian, I mean, isn't that just kind of,
Absolutely.
isn't that
not.
just lesbian?
No, I
No?
mean, I do
No.
think.
I mean,
they?
relationship,
Well,
I know some
meeting,
toxic lesbian
you know?
relationships.
I think that there are a diverse group of lesbians and there are a diverse group of gay men. I think that women in general have a more nurturing, and I'm generalizing, of course, because there are a lot of men that are nurturing and a lot of women that are not nurturing. But, you know, that I think is what brings women to make, you know, the commitments. Now, I would really love to see the statistics on duration
Yeah.
and
Yes.
how, you know, like if a couple had been together for 30 years and they get married, did it stick?
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe a couple who just got together and got married because they could. And, you know, I would like to see those kind of statistics, but I think it's still too early.
It's still
Oh,
too
you
early.
just took
to
the
do
word right out of my
any
mouth. I was
of
going to say, I think
that.
it's still a little
of
too
that.
early.
Yeah, it's a
but
little
yeah,
too early, but this is interesting.
I haven't seen too many episodes of Divorce Court where there's plenty of
I
From the
haven't seen.
like gays on
I don't think
Divorce
I've ever
Court.
watched
Coming up
Divorce
on Queer News Tonight, Divorce Court.
That's what
that would be
spicy.
delicious. I think that would be
Not in my
delicious.
house.
That would be delicious.
We need to
Very
pitch
good.
that, guys. That is the next show
Programming
we're gonna
idea.
do.
Yes.
Right?
Divorce
This is
Court.
real.
Yes.
I'm here for this idea.
You're onto something.
You know what? We might have a new show.
Oh no!
I
I don't
agree.
wish divorce on anything.
I don't either, but the entertainment will be fun.
It's entertainment value. That's what it is.
Okay.
How about we queer up the U.S. view?
Okay.
Hide the Pride campaigns targeting American libraries growing. Queer News Tonight has previously reported on the organization Catholic Vote and their Hide the Pride campaign. The past month has shown movements to ban books with LGBTQ plus content from public and school libraries, and laws being passed to make sure that students don't say gay. These efforts seem to embolden the attempts to censor LGBTQ plus books in more covert ways. The group encourages followers to bring friends and check out all the books in a library Pride displays. They hide them at their homes so they cannot be checked out by members of the public. This encouraged all books to be checked. They encourage all books to be checked out, but have a list of 16 books that push eroticism and glorify LGBTQ identities, undermine parental rights, and 100% contrary to the church's teaching of love and sexuality. One of these targeted books is Julian is a Mermaid, a book about a boy who dresses like a mermaid to be in the Coney Island Mermaid Parade.
They was coming
Where's
for you.
your
Okay,
mermaid?
here we
We
go.
don't have that
And I
Maggie
look
right now. Where's she at?
Cute in that mermaid.
It was cute.
No,
Ariel
that's
has
not
nothing to
me.
do.
But that's not me. But I could be a mermaid. But
I can see you.
all that aside, again,
Okay, so if they're taking the books out of the library and they're putting them into their house, at least their kids have access to them.
Oh, there
If
you
they
go.
have the kids, but then it really is just that censorship piece. But maybe it's me calling the kettle black, pot calling the kettle black, whatever you want to call it. I hate when we see people saying, okay, let's take this out of our libraries. Let's take this out of our history, but then let's still place this in there and not have a full-blown conversation about it. I'm like, you're a freaking hypocrite.
Right.
How can you say, let's not talk about queer issues, but we're still going to talk about slavery in what it is and make it seem as if slavery was where the Black people started, when it's like, no, honey, there's a whole history behind it, but you also don't teach it in the schools today. It needs to be taught. That way kids understand where they come from, where their cultures come from, and also they see a different way of life that builds empathy and compassion in our community.
Exactly. And I think that this story paired with the one about the schools and, you know, if public libraries are taking these books off the shelf, if a young person is questioning, we know they've been pulled from the school libraries. Where are they going to get information? They're going to search the internet, and who knows what they're going to come up with.
Seeing something on YouTube, that's not right.
Exactly. And you know, and it's not the way we should be raising children in this country at all.
Someone I know who actually written a book is part of that book ban. George M. Johnson wrote the book All Boys Aren't Blue, and he was a part of that book ban. His book was taken off shelves because it included something, he experienced sexual assault, and he included that as part of his book, and they removed it, and they was thinking about even taking up criminal charges against him because of it. And I'm like, now we're going to criminally charge people for writing about their experiences in their books. And it's definitely a book that's geared to, you know, young people who are just coming out. And my heart hurts for him because I'm like,
Christopher, can you just tell us the title and his name again?
Sorry, George M. Johnson. It's All Boys Aren't Blue.
You hear that? All Boys
get
Aren't
that book.
Blue. Go buy it.
Shout out to George.
You
It's
can
a
find
great,
it on
it's a
Amazon.
great book. I remember when he was actually writing that book way back in like 2015. He was starting it. And to see all the success that comes out from it is just amazing. I'm so proud of him. But to see the controversy that's coming out, because it's really innocent. It's a coming of age. It's about him.
Because it has queer notes to it.
But what I'm saying is it's ridiculous that our lives are so controversial.
They are, because we're saying something that is not going with the whole heterosexual, heteronormative.
But we exist. By not talking about us.
But we don't exist because it's all a choice. Remember, it is a choice to be gay, to be trans. It is all a choice. We're making choices in our lives here. It has nothing to do with how you feel and things like that, and attraction and romance. It has nothing to do with that. But even more to the point, I'm wondering, is it because, I feel like it was mostly because the book that you said, All Boys Aren't Blue, has to do with LGBT identity, but not because of the history of this person.
Yeah, it was because of the sexual assault part that it was someone talking about gay sex in the book. And it's like, literally, like, read the book. It's a really great book. It really talks about experiences that young people might be going through as a person who's just trying to find themselves. And it's like, don't you got more, isn't there more important things to do?
Right. How is that sex and not assault? That's something we should have youth being able to tell
describing
what
an
is
assault.
happening.
Would you call, oh, this woman's being raped? Oh, that's sex.
Yeah, no. And
But when
Look,
it comes to gay people.
This is heterosexual sex happening.
yeah, she said no. She told this person not to come into the room. I don't want to do it, but it's, oh, we're going to do it. Come on, just let it happen. Just let it happen. Keep coercing, and then finally, okay, I'm just going to let it happen. That is rape. Point blank, period. And I would love to.
I think there's an important point that I want to highlight again, and it's back to what Cindy was saying about the connection to the other to the other story.
Yeah.
These are public libraries,
Right.
Public
library.
funding, and that means that there should be no religious
Authority
over it.
Exactly.
And because we're guaranteed the separation of church and state,
Are we?
except,
Are we?
We'll go back. I want to go back. The Supreme Court recently said that Maine is now required to give public funding to religious institutions that offer education. And in my mind, that, and I'm not the jurisprudence expert, but in my mind, that is not the separation of church and state. And that means that those schools need to be taxed.
Exactly, they need to be taxed. Absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
Wow.
but they're not. So.
We can talk about this all day, but let's go to some entertainment, something a little more light-hearted. So let's queer entertainment. Trixie Mattel throws first wedding at Trixie Motel with Gigi. Gorgeous. The glamtastic Trixie Motel is now open as the remodel is being broadcast as a home renovation style show on Discovery Plus. You can stay in one of the ultra colorful rooms for rates that start at the paltry $550 a night, and fans have been keeping them booked solid. On a recent episode, the official interior designer Danny Daisy and her boyfriend Philip Butler wanted to get hitched. Trixie reached out to her RuPaul's Drag Race sister Gigi Gorgeous for help. On Twitter, Gigi said, "Trixie asked me to come and break in her new motel with his first wedding. I said yes." You can catch the final episode of Trixie's Motel on Discovery Plus this Friday.
I'm still stuck on that paltry $550. Like, you know what I can do with
It's only $550.
You
know,
could take
but
a weekend cruise.
Exactly.
You guys, have y'all seen the place? Have y'all?
It's beautiful.
Oh my gosh!
I don't
watch-
I don't watch
reality
TV like
TV.
that, so I don't know what this is about.
Trixie, but it's so pretty.
Beautiful.
And then it's pink.
And
There's
it's
a lot of
so
pink.
so
in it.
Ever since we've started reporting on this, I've wanted to go see it. I just realized now I can't afford it. So maybe I'll do just a little drive-by.
You can do a drive
Where
by.
is it?
Get a day pass.
It's in like
It's like, do they rent by the hour?
Pool.
Right.
No, that
It's
would
in, like,
probably
what,
be one of those
Palm
hotels.
Springs.
Oh, in Palm
area
Springs.
thing, yeah.
Down the
But
street.
maybe we can see if she'll have the Happening Out News Network there.
Well,
to
maybe
promote the
they need
show.
Yeah.
on-scene reporters
Yeah.
to do a story
Ones that
for
get-
the wedding.
The ones who get specifically to the queer community, like
Right.
Happening Out Television Network.
That's
So,
right.
Trixie Mattel, if you're
Exactly.
watching this show, please, and I would love to be one of the anchors, I'm just saying.
Of
I'll
course.
plug myself, too.
I guess this Friday I know what I will be doing. I'll be watching Trixie's Motel because I've never seen it. I don't know who she is.
Binge it on Discovery Plus.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Okay, gays, please don't.
I
kill
don't
me.
know who she is
Please
either.
don't kill me, gays.
But I
Please.
think people wouldn't expect me to know who she is.
Yes, I'm not surprised that you don't know, if I'm honest.
So we're on the same team. Okay, so yes.
Trixie, they cannot be anchors if you
Yeah.
get Happening Out. We can do it. Me and Julian got it.
We got you.
Sassy black woman, sassy gay man. We got it. We got it.
I can do it. Just need a little history.
You need.
It's
Okay.
fab.
I'm gonna tell you to watch on YouTube or watch
on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
it is her and Katya together, or you can watch Queens Who Watch on Netflix. It is good. I live for it. So get your history on her,
Okay.
and also watch her own YouTube show, which is also there.
Okay, I have a lot of notes to take. We'll
got a lot
talk-
of stuff to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, definitely. I know
I'm plugging you, Trixie. Please
She-
bring us on.
Wow. Well, let's move on to queering up LGBTQ plus civil rights. Queer legal experts explain what happens when Obergefell gay marriage is overturned. With the overturning of Roe versus Wade and Justice Clarence Thomas asserting that other cases, including Obergefell versus Hodge, would be following suit, legal teams have been scrambling to plan a way to protect the rights of married same-sex couples. Currently, the only way to protect those rights for all U.S. citizens would be via Congress. And the slim majority that Democrats hold in the House and Senate mean a filibuster by Republicans is guaranteed. Should Democrats lose seats during the midterm election, something that's likely to happen given the president's low approval rating, the loss of federal protections are expected and should be prepared for. Most legal teams are focusing on ways to get same-sex marriage added to state constitutions and to overturn bans that currently exist. 35 states, including Florida, have laws that ban same-sex marriage. While unlikely, it's possible some states may choose to invalidate marriages performed under Obergefell v. Hodges.
Let me just ask for clarity. Before we had same-sex marriage across the board in our nation, wasn't Florida not one of the first, but one of the states that approved same-sex marriage in our state itself?
Well, there were
New York.
Well,
Massachusetts, I think.
Like,
there were several other states that had approved marriage previously. But when the Supreme Court was hearing it, They were reading their ruling in, I think it was May or June, maybe it was June. And Florida, it went to court, and the judge said, there's no reason why you shouldn't be married, and brought it to Florida before the Supreme Court, but other states did have it previously.
Okay.
And there were actually two Supreme Court decisions. The first one was about survivorships and tax, like tax returns, because Edie Windsor and her wife of many years, when Edie died, her wife had to pay exorbitant estate taxes. A heterosexual married couple would not have had to do that. They were legally married in New York, and they sued, or the wife sued to be able to get that benefit. So the federal government gave that benefit of being able to file taxes together prior to the legalization of marriage, so that some of the federal rights were granted to those marriages that happened in states where it was already legal. But the fear here is we're going backwards.
Way back.
And they could invalidate marriages. They
I mean,
absolutely could.
I am sure I've probably even said on this program, you can't take it away. Once you've given it to you, you can't take it away. But they totally
yes.
proved that wrong.
Yeah.
They've totally proved me wrong on that. So
And, you know, the Roe decision was publicly unpopular. And if they vote to overturn same-sex marriage, that also will be, you know, an unpopular
vote by them.
vote, because the nation has already said, you know,
now
we agree.
I'm not in favor of governing by executive order, but Biden essentially stepped in and he gave a little reprieve for the Roe v. Wade decision. Is that something you think that the president could do in the Obergefell case? And would he?
But wait till we get another president.
Right.
Well, that's
mean,
right.
the-
That's
the-
why I'm not in
Right.
favor.
You know,
of it.
the thing about doing these little Band-Aid things when the Republicans do something horrible and we find a way to get around it, you know, I'm hopeful, but I'm not optimistic. How's that?
There's
Yeah.
like this weird tug of war that depending on who's in office or what
Yeah.
party is in office, everything's going to change.
Right.
So what we had when Obama was in office was definitely different than when Trump was in office.
I remember those
and now
years.
that it was lovely, I'm not
It was
going to lie.
great.
But now we have Biden in office, and I'm sorry, it's no wonder that he is not very popular, because Trump, this is the one area in which, and be very wary of what I'm about to say, I will respect him, is that when he says, I'm going to do this thing, he signed his executive order and did it. He was all big business, not big business, but big government, as opposed to states government, which, correct me if I'm wrong, that's against the Republican creed. I'm
Yeah,
like, right?
exactly.
So, but he made it work, and it was in benefit of the Republican Party. So he was pushing his party's agenda forward. Biden's not doing that right now. There are little things, like you said, that what is out there right now is very small, it's very minute. It's like, okay, let's do this, and then here are some things. Nothing that's, okay, a woman has a right to her body. She cannot have this happen. A doctor will not be penalized for providing this needed service on somebody. That's not written. It's suggested, but not written.
The other problem with this story, too, that we haven't talked about yet is the filibuster rule.
Absolutely.
There is no reason. I mean, if we didn't have that, we could get things
much.
passed.
Yeah,
and that's exactly how the Republicans did it in the past. But then for some reason, and this is my one of my biggest problems with the Democrats, is that we are not strong enough to
We
just
take the
get
high road.
things done.
Right.
And you know, I
Stop.
think that
We do
we
take
need
the high
to
road.
Screw
we need to
that.
put this in perspective, because Congress didn't used to be like this. There would always be cross-party line votes on everything. And we've gotten to the point where it doesn't even matter what the issue is. If it is presented by a Democrat,
You don't.
We don't
no
want it.
Republicans will even consider it.
And it could be
And
really good.
if it's put forth by a Republican, no Democrats will even consider it. But I think that,
That wall is.
you know, we need to go back to the times when, I mean, there was two political parties for a reason, to create a balance.
Right.
And every committee, there were members from both parties. They came to compromises.
Mhm.
And what has happened is the Republicans have worked behind the scenes to make sure conservatism is spread through all the lower echelons of politics, so it just comes up like it's state level. And then from state level, they gerrymander the districts. And so now they can get their members of Congress into the House of Representatives. And then Senate, each state gets 2 senators. So at least that's a general vote. But, you know, I don't think, I think the two-party system has to crash, completely
Yes.
crash.
I want to
Brink
stick in with this just for a second, because we haven't always been a two-party system.
Oh, yeah.
What
Right,
we
exactly.
have been is in the last 2 generations stuck into this Republican v.
Exactly.
Democrat two-party system. I mean,
Right.
our first 2 presidents were Federalists. We had 2 presidents from the Whig Party. There was a very popular Democrat-Republican movement that from whom we got presidents. We didn't actually have Republicans until Lincoln.
Right.
So, you know, we've always been merging and evolving political
this
parties,
two-party
but
doesn't
we
work.
haven't done that
It
in
doesn't.
decades.
And I agree, the two-party system needs to be 100% demolished. I will be very honest. I am a Democrat on paper, but at heart, I don't like either party, because at the end of the
Right.
day, what you're doing is going
Right.
towards a party. What you should care about is the American people. And that includes all people, from someone who maybe they are not a certified U.S. citizen to someone who is trans identified. That's who you are taking care of. And to have it that we are so divided that it's, oh, you're not this, you're not that, so I won't help you. So you're going to let that
Yeah,
person be harmed, be starved, not have health care. You're just going to basically let somebody die in
Yeah.
certain extents
For the
Okay.
sake of the party.
for the sake of the party,
Yeah.
which makes
Yeah, and I mean, this whole thing right now with the Republican Party outcasting Liz Cheney for
Oh, yeah.
telling the truth.
For being somewhat reasonable.
being honest.
Yeah, for being honest. I mean,
But Julian,
Our
yeah.
country is so divided. I don't see, and it's in the last 20 years, 15 years, it's just gotten to where
Yeah.
the division is so wide that I honestly feel in my lifetime, I don't see that coming back in my lifetime.
oh, I don't.
Not
see
for
it
long.
I
either.
just
I don't.
don't. And
It's going to take something drastic to happen.
something really big
Bad.
and drastic, yes,
Mm.
is going to have to happen.
You know, people joke and say Gilead from Handmaid's Tale,
Mhm.
and
Like Gilead that we have here now, that's already,
well, I mean,
well, not this one, but example.
but it could, you know, what's happening now are the predecessors in, you know, Handmaid's Tale.
The build.
What happened prior to the whole shift?
Yeah.
One day, a woman goes to get money out of her bank account, and she can't, because women aren't allowed to own money. You know, it's crazy.
Well, at least
know-
they can't vote.
And one of the other things I think that's happening.
What?
That was sarcasm.
it up.
That was
I'm
sarcasm.
like,
Uh-oh.
Cindy's ready.
And
Oh,
Cindy,
yeah,
I'll slap
I'm
you if
ready.
you want to swing.
But
You know
Julian-
what? And I honestly feel, you know, a little something else that's kind of happening now that didn't used to happen, and that is that it used to be that the LGBTQ community got up off their butts and got out there on the streets and really screamed and shouted and did all these protests, etc. We came together in this in the 80s and the late 70s and 80s, and I remember doing this, and it's
That's how
not that
Pride
way
started.
anymore.
Yeah, young people
They
don't have that
It's what
as
happens
much.
with revolution, civil rights.
Right.
Because
I-
even looking at the African American civil rights.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
We
We're
divided there,
doing
too.
this.
With,
It's
just
divided.
with the don't say, when the
divided
whole
there.
don't say gay, and we were
You're
trying
nothing.
to, me and another, we're like, well, let's organize and let's, crickets
Right.
Yes.
from our community.
Yes.
And people wanting to come together.
But this generation
Crickets.
organizes differently now. It's through social media. So there's social media campaigns.
But
There's
you
like
got to be out
TikTok.
there and take to the streets.
Right,
You
but this
gotta
is the
take
digital
to the
age,
streets.
though.
Well,
But just
you know
clicking a
what?
like does nothing.
You
you know, and no offense to what you're saying, but bull.
No,
You know,
I
you know,
think
I
it's
think
just
there are
different
different
generations.
ways.
Meaning,
There's
of course, I'm not saying
different
there.
generations.
I'm not saying there aren't different ways. What I am saying, though, is that we as a community should come together. And I'm not talking about Facebook and I'm not talking about Instagram. I'm thinking we should come together as a community as we did
But
in
we're
the
a divided
70s.
community,
and
though.
the 80s.
We all
I'm
don't
talking
have the
about
same wants.
I'm talking about the LGBTQ
But
community.
even as the LGBTQ communities, we have different wants. I mean, we have people of color who's part of the LGBTQ community. They don't have the same.
So I'm
It's a
gonna
whole different
let me just
conversation.
jump in just for a second because I want to say so. I understand what you're saying, which is that we as a community are fractured in lots of ways.
Right.
But also at the same time, what you're saying, which is we all need to come together and
Yeah.
do this because it's better for all of us.
And again, I hear what you're saying because I hear this time and time again from people that I'm talking to. And that's why I go, "Oof,
Well,
okay,
you know,
good luck with
figure
this,
it out.
people.
The reality is that activism looks like a lot of things.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
And the social media component is absolutely necessary. The
Very-
get out on
Never
the
said it
streets
wasn't.
component
Yeah.
is absolutely necessary. So
100%.
what I'm saying
We all have
is
our roles.
different people become activists in different ways.
Mhm.
And somebody uses their, maybe their social media credibility or following, and that's how they're doing their activism, because that's the demographic they want to reach. Older people like us, we go a different route because, our cohorts aren't into the social media as much.
I think it has
You
to
know,
be kind of a coming
collective.
together of both because
Yeah.
And
I
not
agree.
even just
I-
those two. I think there's probably 10, 20 other
different ways to do it.
ways, different
Right.
avenues to
Yes.
go about activism.
Also, I'm going to be the consummate pessimist in here and
No.
say, yes,
I
I'm going to
rebuke you.
tell you that we are complacent capitalists. And as long as we can afford to do those things that we want to do, we're not going to give a shit about anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you call it to the
that's
grass
why,
like that.
and that's why they want corporations to be people. They, meaning the conservative governments, want corporations to be people. That's why they want marriage to be between a man and a woman, because there are tax benefits to that. That's why they want all of their traditional values to remain, because it keeps us complacent and it keeps us buying goods that keep the wealthy wealthy.
Dang. Dr. Tai Houser just shut it down.
All right, since you shut it down, let's move forward. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
This is Orlando Gonzalez. I'm the Executive Director of Safeguarding American Values for Everyone, also known as SAVE, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, folks, that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by linking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share the news with your friends and family.
All right, post this broadcast in the mini groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Dr. Tai Houser, and on behalf of these esteemed LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Sobourney Barnes, Julian Cavazos, Christopher Barnhill, and my girl, Cindy Williams. We will see you daily.
It's brown, honey.
Oh, geez.
I mean,
Get it.
Is
I
that
do
your
share
girl?
a birthday
give
with
up.
That's
Suzanne
Wendy
Summers.
Williams.
I give up.
Thinking.
And my girl, Cindy Williams Brown. We will see you daily at 8 p.m.
Girl, you done got hit.
Good night.
All right.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBT